Hi, welcome to the What is Church podcast. I am one of your hosts, Philip Mull, and with me joining is the man, the myth, the legend, Pastor Andrew Mull. Give us an introduction and tell us your favorite holiday candy, Andrew.
Oh my goodness, my favorite holiday candy?
Uh-huh.
Huh. I'm not like I guess Reese's Trees, does that count as a holiday candy? They only sell them for Christmas.
That's true. They do only sell those at Christmas. I,
So that
I
would
sure,
be,
I'll give it to you. The only one that came to mind for me was candy canes, just because that was the only Christmas candy that immediately popped into mind.
yeah,
Maybe those little marshmallow chiclet things.
isn't that
Or
Easter?
Peeps. They're Peeps.
That's
Oh,
Easter,
dang it,
right?
those are Easter. Well, that Easter is a holiday, and those are a candy. So,
That is correct. What is your favorite thing that you've ever got in your stocking?
oh, in my stocking, um, I'm pretty sure our parents put a set of Bluetooth earbuds in my stocking one year instead of a
Ooh.
conventional packaging. So that would probably be my favorite.
So I think I have to do a cop-out answer. Didn't we get
Okay.
$500 gift cards one year to a mall?
Did no, it was one of those just like Visa general gift cards, I think.
Okay. And wasn't that in a stocking?
That
I
was
think that
probably
was
in a
in the
stocking.
stocking. I just remember, like,
Man,
you
we
always
sound
start with your
spoiled
stocking.
with that. We
I
sound spoiled
know.
with that. So today we are doing a themed episode today. And I say today, we're probably recording this a month or 3 weeks in advance. But we are going to be talking about Santa Claus. And I know some of you are like, what the heck does Santa Claus have to do with the Bible and the church and stuff like that? And well, Santa Claus doesn't have anything to do with that. But the guy who Santa Claus is loosely based off of, Saint Nicholas of, let me see, where is he? Where is he the
M
saint
My
of? I just
Mira, my
uh,
Myra,
yeah,
Saint Nicholas of
basically modern day Turkey,
yeah.
a port city in Turkey, I believe. So Santa Claus is a fictional character developed by marketers and such to sell Coca-Cola products and more toys to children. And
Yeah, and I feel
uh,
like the Saint Nicholas dude was even cooler than, like, like, they like the
yeah.
legend of Santa Claus and the crazy things he can do and all that stuff. I feel like Saint Nicholas's stories are, like, even cooler.
All right. So should we give an overview of the life of Saint Nicholas? Or where should
Yeah,
we start out this episode? Just
he
overview.
was a wee little lad.
And a wee little lad was he.
Yeah, when was he born?
He was born in like the 3rd century. So actually, I think we should preface this by just giving okay, we're gonna talk as if everything we're saying is factual in this podcast, just because reasons. But I need you to know up front that we don't really have hardly any solid facts about Saint Nicholas. The earliest biography we have of his life was written, I think, like 400 years after he died. That biography does reference and pull a lot of resources from an earlier biography, which we have not found yet, but it makes reference to an earlier biography of St. Nicholas's life. So there are earlier sources. We don't have any copies of that. They have been lost to the sands of time. So all of the details that we're going to share, uh, they are not recorded as, I guess, fact, even though there is strong tradition behind a lot of them. And there is an earlier biography of his life, which we don't have, but a guy named Michael the Archimandrite. He's the guy who produced the biography that we do have. So, yep, he would have been born in the 3rd century. So that's like 300 years after the life of Christ, um, in modern day Turkey. He was born into a wealthy Christian family. His parents died, seems like while he was still pretty young. And there's some different speculations as to um, what killed his parents. Um,
The
according
general
to the biography which Andrew watched, very very accurate and well represented biography, which Andrew watched with his son this week, which he can tell you a little more about.
Produced by Phil Vischer, called
Uh huh.
VeggieTales. So in that, it references that they die from some kind of pandemic, and when I was reading
Hmm.
and researching, that's kind of what it because they were so much of like a caring people, and
Yeah.
just the early church was so like it wasn't like hospitals and stuff. It was like the Christians were the ones who went and cared for the sick and the needy, and so
Yeah.
in references, that's where like the legend says that his parents died from taking care of the sick while he was a young man.
Yep. And so uh, Saint Nick, at being a young man, he was very interested in. I mean, he was raised in the church, raised with a good Christian family, and he was interested in doing ministry within the Catholic Church. His uncle was some sort of bishop or leader in the Catholic Church, I believe. And his uncle was the one who kind of got him an in originally to a leadership position in the church. Um, do you remember what like where he would have started in the church? What his position would have been?
No idea.
Okay.
If you have
But
usually if you have someone like with family who's higher up, you kind of you start a little higher, but I have no idea. I know that when he
yeah,
was
I
younger,
feel
he spent a lot of time in Jerusalem, right? Or over
yes.
in Israel,
Yeah, so he would have
or I
been,
guess
I think, ordained as a priest by his uncle, and after his parents' death, he went and did a travel to the Holy Land to kind of see where Jesus walked, where all that original stuff took place, to learn, to grow, and he got his first, I guess, bishop position upon his return home, and there's some pretty hilarious circumstances
yeah.
behind how that happened.
Yeah, it just goes to show you are rewarded when you get up early in the morning to pray.
Hmm. Yep. So during his travels, the current bishop of that area passed away, and the church was having a real hard time deciding who was going to be the next bishop because there was a lot of like, I guess, half the church wanted this guy to be the bishop, the other half wanted this guy to be the bishop. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but there was some the disagreement, and so they said, "All right, next guy to walk in to the sanctuary is going to be the new bishop." And Saint Nick, or priest Nick, I guess, showed up that morning really early to pray and was dubbed the new bishop of the
Promoted
church.
immediately.
Yep.
Can you just imagine? You just are going to go pray and you just get a promotion. And
Yeah.
like you're
Right.
now
We
in charge of
after.
like who knows how many different,
Yeah.
synagogues, churches, all just because, you walked in.
Yep. So Nick would have been a pretty wealthy guy because his parents were wealthy, but he was not known to have, I guess, capitalized on that wealth. Instead, he really was a generous guy and gave a lot of it away during his life. I guess the most famous example of that, which has kind of, I believe, grown. The story has grown over time, but it's why we do the whole like stockings thing. It's this story led to the tradition of the whole hanging the stockings and filling the stockings with things every year. Um, and the story is, I think it was his neighbor, um, who was a pretty well off dude, fell into poverty, and he was not going to be able to pay the dowry for his three daughters to get married. And he was basically going to have to resort to prostituting out his daughters in order to get the money for them to get married and have like a decent life. Kind of a weird setup, at least by our current standards.
Was there like a
But
set dowry? Have you ever like researched that? Was there like a set dowry in like a town, or was it based on like how desirable the woman was, or how old they
I
were, or
have no
whatever,
idea.
or were there
It might have had
classes?
to do with like my guess. If I was just guessing and pulling an answer out of my buttocks, I
Oh
would
my.
guess that it had to do with the status of the family you were trying to get your daughter married into.
Okay, that makes sense.
That would be my guess, but who knows if I'm right. So he pays for the first daughter by checking money in the window. Um, they wake up, they find the money. Dad rejoices, gets the daughter married off. She doesn't have to do prostitution or none of that crap.
Yay.
Second, like after Saint Nick sees this, he's like, "All right, it worked. We're doing it again." So he gets all dressed up in his red outfit with his fluffy hat, which would be a horrible nighttime disguise. He didn't actually wear that. I don't think he probably would have worn a dark cloak, but I was yeah. Sneaks up, chucks another bag of money into the window, runs away. And the guy who lost all of his money was just like praising the Lord, believing it was a miracle that this money just showed up. And then he sees it happen a second time and he starts to get a little suspicious like, hey, I think maybe somebody else, God's maybe encouraging somebody else to do this. So he pays for the other daughter to get married, and then he like starts waiting up at night for whoever it is to come by. And he sees the dark figure kind of rustling in the bushes, jump the fence, chuck the money bag. And apparently, according to the story, he chases Saint Nick for like a considerable distance, basically saying like, "Stop! I want to thank you. Stop! I want to thank you." And eventually, he either catches Saint Nick or Saint Nick gives up. I can't imagine how fit someone in a priestly position would be. I feel like you're doing most of your stuff indoors, but that's just speculation. I'm not
You're
I'm
not
not
saying he was a
dissing Saint
large,
Nick
jolly
right now.
fellow?
He apparently he did have a belly that jiggled like a bowl full of jelly. So
Oh
I
my
can't
goodness.
imagine that would be very aerodynamic or helpful
Oh
for
my
running.
goodness. So how long is a considerable amount of time of running?
He might have gotten away if he was on Dasher.
Oh my goodness.
If your reindeer's named Dasher, I'm guessing he's pretty fast. But
Oh my
but
goodness.
alas, he did not have the reindeer yet. So catches him, and that's how like Saint Nick tells the dude, "Hey, don't tell anybody I did this. I'm trying to do it like for your sake." And so kept it quiet until Saint Nick died, and that's when apparently the dude kind of came out about the story and saying, "Hey, this is what this guy did for me." Um,
That's really cool.
and the story has
What
grown from there. In that,
yeah,
when he chucked
it's
the
like
money bags in the window, like landed in shoes or stockings every time. So,
of course. What a shot.
yep, what a shot!
Deadeye.
That bowl full of jelly. Got quite an arm. That's Santa Claus. So yeah, known for his generosity, but also known for being the patron saint of pretty much
Pretty much
everything.
everything. He's accredited. Listen, so like as much as like this guy was awesome, I feel like there's so much legend around him. It
Uh
like
huh.
makes it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. I mean,
He's
like just
basically
just name some of the
Chuck
stuff that he's
Norris.
the patron saint of, Andrew.
Okay, my favorite one is probably the patron saint of the brewers.
Uh huh. What
I,
is what is a brewer
somebody who
who
makes,
brews things
yes,
like
alcoholic
like the
beverages.
alcohols?
Yes. So when I saw that, I was like, how on earth is he a credit for that? So then I read the story, and the story is it was a very, very poor time, um, and in Asia Minor, and this man lured these three kids in and killed them and cooked them and was selling them as pork.
Well, I don't think he cooked them yet. I think he was just like pickling them.
Okay, sorry. He killed
I
three
think I think they
children,
were pre-cooked.
pre-cooked, pickled children. And so, um, he realized he sees past the deception in this guy when they're in the marketplace, seeing who these kids were, and he prays. Saint Nick prays for these kids, and they come back to life. And so this story became so popular in the church that they started putting it on the windows, like the stained glass windows that they put in all of the cathedrals. And it was such a like inspiring thing. It was like so culturally known and accepted that it basically ended up in almost every single cathedral in the area. And what happened was, over time, the story, they kept telling the story, they kept telling the story. He dies, years and years and years go by, and people forget the story because it was so like everyone kind of knew it. I guess they just stopped
Yeah.
telling people about it. And so a couple hundred years later, somebody asked the priest, the stone stained glass behind the three kids that are dancing in front of Saint Nick. There's like this pot it was the pickled juice that they had that the guy who was had the kids in, but because the
Uh-huh.
priest didn't know, they started to tell people that, well, he's the patron saint of the brewers. And I just find it hilarious how when you don't know history, how history rewrites itself. And so
Yep.
he got added to. He was basically so well respected and loved that
Yeah.
basically everything positive was attributed to him. And
Yeah.
so they just kind of threw another one in. And so now to this day, he is the patron saint of the brewers.
He is the patron saint of the Brewers. That story also got him the title of patron saint of like children and young people.
Yes,
And the previous generosity story makes him the patron saint of unmarried women, um, and single people, I think. So
interesting.
yeah, he's also the patron saint of sailors. He's actually
I know.
very
I
well
love
known as
that
the patron
story.
saint of sailors. You want to tell that story, Andrew?
Sure. So he was on his way
Cool.
to the Holy Land, and the ship he was on was in like a really, really bad storm. And so he pulled to Jesus and he rebuked the waves and they stopped. And so that was like it like the sailors that were with him told everyone. It became such a again another popular story, and the legend of Saint Nick continued to grow, that he was the patron saint of sailors and travelers,
Yep.
which kind of makes sense because of like reindeer and like how he travels,
Oh yeah.
the
Yep.
world.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, he
yeah.
does some serious travel every year. Miles that he must have. He's definitely got to have the platinum card.
How many
Like, do
slaves
you
do
know?
you think he's gone through?
I mean, they're magic, so it's probably just the one.
Okay, okay.
I did like in Elf how they strapped a jet engine to his sleigh. I thought that was good.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the other people that he's the patron saint of?
He is the patron saint of thieves,
Okay, I
which
don't
is like,
remember
what?
that one.
How is that a thing? So I think this story comes from. He was also well known as like an ardent defender of justice, a guy who really was about justice, and he discovered a controversy where a judge was bribed to sentence three men to death, and
Oh
I
yeah,
think
now I
they were on
remember.
trial for some sort of thievery. Um, and he basically he figures this thing out and runs and interrupts the execution, getting in between the dude with the sword who was getting ready to behead and the dudes who were going to be beheaded. And apparently, he like knocks the sword down and undoes their chains and lets them go, because he found out like, hey, these guys are going to be unjustly killed. Like, I'm going to do a thing about this. And so he uh, he is the patron saint of thieves.
Okay, isn't that the same story where he appears in a dream?
So there are a couple iterations of the story. One is he swoops in and like legit saves. The other is like there's a controversy of three generals. And something's up with the three generals, but the judge gets a dream in the night of Saint Nick, telling him like, "Hey, what they're about to do is no good," and they are saved because of the dream. So
That one was really
again,
interesting to me because it was Constantine who had the dream, and the
yes,
things written about this was like one of the mentions of his name was some writing about Constantine, not from like the biography, saying that he had a dream where Saint Nicholas appeared to him and informed him that he was about to punish the wrong people.
yeah.
So I found that pretty interesting.
Yep. So I think it there is something where Saint Nick stops people from getting falsely executed. Is
Y-
basically like
Yeah,
it's the story. There's a couple different permutations of it depending on where you research.
yeah. Do you know how he
But
became the patron saint of pawnbrokers? I
I
saw that
didn't
in
know
three
that
different
that was.
places I
I didn't
read,
know that he
but I
was the
could
patron saint of pawnbrokers.
three different
That's
places I
funny.
read it mentioned that, but I could not find a single story as to why he became the patron saint of pawnbrokers.
Okay, so during that time of poverty when the kids were going to be cooked and sold as pig meat, um he and I think this also has something to do with him being the patron saint of sailors. He really implored different merchants and people passing by the area to drop some of their supplies, it to just to donate it to that region and the people who are in abject poverty at that point. So it may have
Yeah,
something to do with that, how he was an influence in getting, I guess, just supplies and donations brought and left,
I
at their
read
port
one
town.
story where he told a ship passing by, he's like, what you won't lose anything. Whatever you leave here for your travels, you won't lose. And so
Oh
I
wow.
don't remember how much stuff that the ship left to help feed the people, but when they went to the king and they
They had
counted
it
up
all.
everything, everything was there. So it was like another multiplication of food
Wow.
story. Yeah,
Cool.
I
So
thought
I
that
have
was
a
cool.
question for you, Andrew.
Okay,
How does one become a patron saint?
I have no idea.
Well, lucky for you, I did just a tiny, tiny little bit of research. So if I totally screw this up, all you Catholics out there, inform me in the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, please. So there are, I believe it's 4 steps to becoming a patron saint. And to be a patron saint, basically, you only get this accredited to you after you have passed away. Like, I don't think you can be a living patron saint. Um,
Okay,
so first step is you have to be considered a servant of God. Basically, it's like your life is very much dedicated to um, serving the Lord, and it has to be like, people just should be able to look at you and your life and be like, yeah,
that dude loves Jesus.
that dude is serving the Lord with his life and his heart and everything.
Okay,
Um, the next one, I don't know that I'm not gonna pronounce that word, but basically, it's like you have to have a life of heroic virtue. Like, it's not just like, hey, this dude really loves the Lord, but it's like okay, a female patron saint that everyone has heard of, Mother Teresa. She is considered a patron saint. It's like her life was a life of virtue. She gave all she had to help uh, the poor, the kids, and like that was a life of incredible virtue and heroic virtue. Um, it does not mean that the person is sinless, but that they worked aggressively to improve like their spiritual life and improve people around them and stuff like that.
okay.
The next step is like they have to be considered a like blessed person, and so that is they have to have one, I guess, accredited or not just accredited, but kind of like verified miracle associated with their life. Um, so I mean, it's like Saint Nick's first one would have been the calming of the seas. That would have been like the first big miracle that other people could have attested to, and give witness of, hey, this legit happened, like that was a miracle attributed to this person.
Okay.
And according to the research that I have done, this that step is called beautification, which I thought was pretty cool.
I
I
think
thought
so
that was fun.
too. Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
the last step is basically sainthood, um, and it's a second miracle that is like not just like attributed to, but like there's some verification process that goes into it. And so I'm not sure what Saint Nick's second one would have been, but it would have either been like the kids that were raised to life. That's a pretty well known story. That is very that it's very much held traditionally in the Catholic Church that is a legit thing that happened. So that would have been his second miracle that got him sainthood.
That's pretty cool.
And I guess the life of heroic virtue would be paying for the daughters, and getting the the ship's
Is
people
that
to
why? Do you think that's
be
why
supplied.
certain testimonies like stand time? Is because those were the ones that were written about and kind of taught as what were his
I
qualifications?
I think so. Yeah, like those would have been the major ones associated with him.
Interesting.
If you ever go and read Michael the Archimandrites, which is just so much fun to say, just say it, Andrew. Say Archimandrite.
Archimandrite.
Okay, never mind. It didn't sound that fun when you said it, but it sounds it's fun. It's fun when I say it.
Whatever.
So.
Archimandrite.
That's what I'm saying. Read it with some
Archim.
enthusiasm. He's like he basically describes Saint Nicholas as a demon slaying boss, um, and like casting demons out of people. And he attributes a lot more miracles to him, but the ones that are very well known that we're talking about would, I'm assuming, be the ones attributed to his sainthood.
That makes sense.
So that is how one becomes a patron saint. And then I guess like you can just claim them as the patron saint of whatever the heck you want to claim them the patron saint of, like thieves and brewers. Yeah. So
Once you're a
and
patron saint,
pawnbrokers.
you just you can kind of fill
You're
in
just a
anything else you want
legend.
to.
You're just a legend at that point, and the legend grows. So you found out some interesting stuff during your research. You told me, and about the Council of Nicaea, which was intriguing to you, right?
Yeah, I sadly had never heard of that before, but that's one of like the coolest things. I probably actually ended up reading about that as much as I read about anything else, just because I
Yeah.
never.
What
I'm
did what
sure
did
I
you
was
learn about
taught
this?
about it, but I just completely. It was just like the whole church was like, "Hey, we want to know what we agree on, what we believe, because we've been going on for 300 years on different continents, and so it was all the different, I guess maybe denominations and sects of Christianity all coming together to talk about Jesus and what we believe."
Hmm.
And so, in a couple people who took tallies of the people who were there, including some of the ones that are more widely accepted as accurate, Saint Nicholas was an attender, and I think the
Hmm.
coolest thing attributed to him was he slapped a dude in the face.
And
Nicholas
who
seemed
was
to.
who was that dude that he slapped in the face?
You're gonna have to talk about that because I don't remember.
Okay, so this is one of the main debates at the Council of Nicaea. The dude's name is Arius, and the major discussion was a view on the Trinity and what's the relation to God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Arius saw them as three like totally separate people. There was God first, and then God created Jesus, and I'm not exactly sure how the Holy Spirit came to be, but like they are three distinct, so that would be considered polytheism, I believe, to be a Christian in the Arian faith because you're believing in multiple gods, as opposed to, I guess the majority of the council, which saw Father, Son, and Holy Spirit as three in one, which would have been considered monotheism, which was a pretty radical belief in that time period, that there is just one true
Yeah,
God, and that was kind of their way of explaining and uh, just helping people along with how you see God acting kind of different ways throughout history. Um, but so they would have said these three are one. Arius was like, no, the three are three separate. That was one of the major debates. At the end of the Council of Nicaea, there was a big, I guess, separation between the Arian belief and the Christian or little C cat, or I guess big C Catholic or little C Catholic. I'm not sure because one of like Catholic either means the Catholic Church, as in the denomination, and one meaning of Catholic is just like the Christian Church. So it would have been the Christian Church. Catholic at that point was like, no, God is one. But yeah, he and Arius apparently got into it hard, and he full on like slaps giving him in the face.
oh my goodness, what a reference.
What a reference. I knew that one would get a laugh out of you. I spent
Oh
legit
my
like
gosh.
15 minutes trying to think of a good way to describe that would get
Well,
some sort
and
of
some
laugh out of
people
you.
say it wasn't a slap. Some people said no, that was closed fist when they wrote about it.
Yeah. But anyway, like I'm guessing it would have been more like, I guess, like open hand disrespect, to Arius as opposed to just like backhand discipline. Pretty sure that's how that goes. But yeah,
Backhand
full on,
discipline.
full on slaps him, or you get into altercation with Arius. So
Yep,
yep, when your when when your staff meeting goes a little too far.
for real. What
Yeah,
do we agree
and
on?
that
Nothing. Let's get into a
yep,
physical altercation.
and that got him actually kicked out of his position for a little bit, but he was allowed back in later because apparently they were not too fond of him going at it with Arius
That's so
physically.
surprising.
I know, right? What? You punched someone? Yeah, you're good. No.
For to save face, we're gonna have to suspend you for a couple days.
Yeah. So Andrew, have you ever full on slaps giving someone in the face?
Um, I I don't really want to tell the story about the one person I slapped, but I have slapped somebody before. Were you there when that happened?
I, I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure I uh I know the story, and it has to do with the subject of predestination, right? Is that the one?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I'll just
Yeah.
answer. I was playing basketball,
You
and
don't
this
have to
this
tell. You don't
pastor
have to
kid
tell
was
it.
up. Well, I've already begun.
Okay, all right, whatever.
So, anyways, this kid started. They had a huge debate about predestination. I just let him talk, and I was playing basketball. And this one kid was just saying like every action we do is exactly as the Lord makes us do. And so I just kind of like walked over and said, everything I do is exactly what God is making me do. And he was like, yes. And so you would never say what God makes me do is wrong, and you're in complete agreement. He said yes, and I slapped him in the face, and I said, don't get mad at me. I didn't do it. And and that was the most I full on slapped someone. Yeah.
Personally, I think that's a hilarious story, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Then I went back to playing basketball.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good
All
times.
right. So
Good
what did
times.
you learn about Saint Nick and all of his remains?
All of his names.
Remains.
Wait, what? Like names given after his lifetime?
Oh my goodness. His body after he
Oh,
died.
remains. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. I'm tracking with you now. That was the thing that I was wanting to bring up as like a fun little thing at the end.
Okay.
So you're already ahead of me. But yeah, basically they were like, hey, his crypt is getting pretty old and dusty. And, we want to remodel it. We want to give him a prettier crypt because dead people care about the appearance of their crypt, but the Catholic Church does. So they're like, all right, we're gonna redo the crypt, and there were some guys at the University of, I believe it was Manchester, that were like, yo, can we see the bones? Can we have them for a little bit? We want to do some examinations on them, and we want to like, yeah, we want to do some stuff with the bones, some tests, and then we'll give them back. And so they agreed to it, and they had them for I don't know how long. Oh, I don't think it was very long, but the university had him for a little bit, and they did like facial reconstruction scans, and all sorts of scans on him. They found out, I believe, that he had some pretty severe arthritis, and he died roughly at the age of 70.
Yep.
And
And
he
they
was
also
he was
they
about
also
5'6".
found what looks to be like a broken nose, which
Yep.
would make sense because there was a while when the church was being persecuted before Constantine took over
Yes.
that he a lot of the stories about him was that he was persecuted for his faith, and so it would have been a very possible thing for him to have gotten a broken
Yeah.
nose during all that.
And if any of you guys have ever seen the famous painting of a group of Christians praying in the Colosseum with one guy standing up in the middle, and like the lions are getting released, it's that persecution. It's considered like the Great Persecution is like its historical name,
Yeah,
by the Roman Empire. So
yeah.
so it was either that or Arius decked him back. So I mean, you never know. But I think most people seem to agree that it was probably during this big persecution of believers that happened, and I believe he was imprisoned during that time, and released later when Constantine would have become the emperor.
Yep. What do you think about the
Yeah,
manna that apparently oozes out of the crypt every year?
I heard nothing about that.
So
I
apparently,
would you ever partake of manna that oozed out of a crypt?
this was like a clear liquid. It wasn't like they called it manna because apparently everyone people it would happen like once a year, and I think this was in the second place he was buried, not like the current place that they found him, because it was his remains were moved twice, to my understanding.
Okay.
Um, and in one of those places. every year apparently this clear watery liquid would ooze, and that whoever touched it would like be healed, or people would be set free from demonic oppression, and people would travel from all over the world to try to get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I heard nothing about that. That is fascinating.
Yep.
I think I would definitely be afraid to touch clear ooze coming from a crypt.
Can we just take a moment to think who was the first person to say, "Hey, maybe that will heal my broken arm. Let
I
me
don't know.
rub
I
that
can
on
guarantee you
myself."
they never saw any of the Indiana Jones movies.
I don't get the reference.
What? You've never seen any of the Indiana Jones movies?
I'm pretty sure I've seen them all.
Basically, anytime it's like old person stuff and you take it or touch it, you die.
Okay, but was there like a specific?
No, there wasn't like a specific one that I was
Okay.
thinking of.
See, I still don't get the reference after you explained it.
Okay.
Well, anyways, I found it interesting that it was documented that his remains moved a couple of times, but that they still, when the people examined it, like you talked about, it mostly matched up with. It seems like he was alive at that time. It seems like this was a man who lived about as long as they thought he lived, and the broken nose, like everything still added up. Which, it's one of those
Yeah.
things where like nowadays, like people said this is where we think this person died 4,000 years ago, and it's like
Yeah. I
who
have a
has
chip from the cross of Jesus Christ.
right.
Huh.
And so it's kind of like impossible to figure that out, but it's pretty interesting that like a lot of the stuff was documented and
Yeah.
seemed to,
Seems to legit line up.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever look up any of the photos of the reconstruction of his face?
I was like, I should totally do that, but then I didn't.
Okay, so his face is on the episode title page or the episode little title icon. That's what I was trying to send you earlier. Um, but I'm sure if you Google the real face of Santa, that you'll be able to find something
Googling it right now.
right
Real
now.
face.
And it's very interesting to look at that next to um, like old drawings of Santa Claus.
Interesting.
And so it's like, okay, that's pretty accurate. He had a fairly large forehead. He was balding, some soft eyes, kind of a round head.
Good old Saint Nick.
Good old Saint Nick. So yep, that is more or less a brief overview of the life of Saint Nick.
I very much enjoyed learning about this dude.
He is quite the character. He is both as generous as the current rendition of Santa Claus, but he is way more boss and willing to slap people in the face.
What'd you learn from the
Yep.
podcast? Oh, that the original Santa Claus slapped some people in the face, and that Pastor Andrew has done the same thing.
To make a theological point. See,
Yeah.
you are just like Santa Claus,
Stop. Oh my goodness.
except your belly does not jiggle like a bowl full of jelly.
No, no, no. Well, if you guys enjoyed this, we are going to shoot for the modern day interpretation of Christmas, the history of the modern day Christmas. And
Yep.
so if you guys want that, you have to like, comment, share, and motivate us to do that in time.
We're gonna try to have that out. We're gonna try to have this one out like the week of Christmas, which I don't know why I'm telling you guys that now, because if it's after Christmas, then I'm just saying how incompetent I am. And if it's on time, then you don't really care because you're listening to it. But we're gonna try to have this one out the week like leading up to Christmas, and then we'll try to have the other one out maybe on Christmas.
That would be cool.
So we'll see how that goes.
You can all sit around while you open your presents and watch
We gotta get we
basketball.
gotta get a hold of like some free Christmas jingles we can have playing in the background while we talk.
Perfect.
That would be cool.
Well,
All
thank you
right,
guys
brother.
for joining us. Thank you, Philip, for you guys don't understand. If it wasn't for Philip, we would have had like one episode by this point. Philip does the editing and the promotion and the research. So give him a thank you, or send him some free hot cocoa or something.
You can bring me figgy pudding.
You know what? That would be absolutely incredible. Somebody listening to this, show up at my brother's door. I will say the address as soon as I can remember it and bring him some figgy pudding.
If you contact Andrew at Light Force Church, maybe he will give away my address, which I'm not thrilled about that idea, but I am thrilled about the idea of getting figgy pudding. So,
All right. Love you, dude. Take care.
all right. Love you, dude. Talk to you later.